We are back in the lab once again, and today our conversation shifts to the Hall of Fame. You hear first ballot or future Hall of Fame terms get thrown around quite a bit, but for the class of 2020, the future is now. Let's talk about it. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Trey Ball. Today we are going to be talking about the class of 2020 Basketball Hall of Fame. This is a stat class, one of the most historical classes that we'll ever see. A lot of names you do know, some of them you may have heard, and others you probably are unfamiliar with, but we're going to go down the whole list. Number one on the list, we'll start with Patrick Bowman, the great Kobe Bryant, the great Tamika Catchings, the great Tim Duncan, the great Kevin Garnett, Kim Mulkey, Barbara Stevens, Eddie Sun, and Rudy Tomjanovich. Um, a lot of these, like I said, some you do know, some you won't, but they come with so many accolades, so many awards, statistics that you may or may not have heard. Like I said, for the most part, you're gonna know quite a bit of these. Some you won't. Patrick Bowman was a FIBA executive for USA Basketball for quite some time. Kim Mulkey, Barbara Stevens, Eddie Sutton, they're largely associated with coaching and women's basketball coaching. Rudy Tomjanovich, one of the all-time great NBA coaches. He spent 34 consecutive seasons with the Houston Rockets organization as a player from 1970 to 1982. He was assistant coach 83 to 92 and head coach 1992 to 2003. He was named the Sporting News NBA Coach of the Year in 93. He's the only person in NBA history to score 10,000 points as a player and win 500 career games with 2 championships as a coach. Tomjanovich led the Rockets to NBA championships in 94 and 95 and is one of 3 coaches to win an NBA championship, an Olympic gold medal. He led USA Basketball to a gold medal in the Olympics in 2000 in Sydney, Australia. Looking at Tamika Catchings, okay, now this is personally one of my favorite women's basketball players. I would have to say Diana Taurasi is up there, Candace Parker, Cheryl Swoops is good. Uh, I think Tamika Catchings might be my favorite women's basketball player of all time. She was a 10-time WNBA All-Star, 2002, 3, 5, 7, 6, 09, 11, 13, 14, 15, 4-time gold medalist in 2004, 08, 12, 16. After winning the WNBA MVP in 2011, she led the Indiana Fever to a WNBA championship in 2012 while collecting WNBA MVP for the finals. She played her entire 14-year WNBA career with the Fever, the Indiana Fever, for those of you that don't know, while being named WNBA Defensive Player of the Year 5 times, 05, 06, 09, 10, and 12, and Rookie of the Year in 2002. As the WNBA all-time steals leader, Catchings was named a member of the WNBA top 20 players in the league's 20-year history in 2016. Pat Summon's Lady Vols. Catchings won a national championship in 1998, was named a 4-time Kodak First Team All-American 98, 99, 1000, and 2001, as well as Consensus National Player of the Year in 2000. And I did mention Pat Summitt, Lady Vols. In my personal opinion, men or women's, I feel like she's the best coach in college basketball history. A lot of people, they recognize Roy Williams, Coach K, rightfully so. But in my opinion, I would have to give that to Pat Summitt. There's a lot of names that get thrown in there, but I gotta give respect where respect is due. Pat Summitt is probably the absolute best. You see a lot of the players that come through her program in the league, the past 10 years or so. A lot of them have championships, MVP awards, Defensive Player of the Year awards. Candace is the reigning Defensive Player of the Year for the WNBA. A lot of those players, they come into the league. You give a lot of respect to the UConn players because Gino Auriemma, he cheats every year and gets the best players out of nowhere. You know, he'll lift up a rock to find the #1 recruit. But I give just as much respect to Pat Summitt in that regards. Hall of Famer in her own right as well. Next up is Kobe Bryant. 1,346 games, 25 points a game, 5 rebounds, 4.7 assists, 33,643 points in his career, 7,047 rebounds, 6,506 assists. Um, Me personally, that's a lot of assists for a ball hog. Just throwing that out there. Had 81 points in a single game versus Toronto Raptors. 18-time All-Star, 2-time scoring champion, 5-time NBA champion, 15-time All-NBA selection, 12-time All-Defensive, 96-97 All-Rookie team, 4-time All-Star Game MVP, 2-time Finals MVP, 2008 MVP, 4th in scoring in the entire history of the NBA. 6 times he scored 60 plus points, 25 times he scored 50 plus points, and 103 times he scored 40 plus points. Had 60 points in his final game in the NBA against the Utah Jazz. Ironically, that's the same team that he shot several air balls against in his first playoff run. And he comes back and he closes the chapter on them. Absolutely remarkable career. 18th on the 3-point list as well, so he can knock it down from downtown. Before the likes of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson came along, he was the leader in that regards of 3-pointers made in a single game, tied with Danielle Marshall with 12 3-pointers. So, you know, he could knock it down from outside. Pull-up game was strong. Mid-range, he could do it all. And then once he linked up with Hakeem Olajuwon after that first championship without Shaq in 2009, he got back in the league. He shored up his footwork even more so and took it to that next level and became an even more dominant player with his back to the basket, showing his commitment to the game. A lot of people talked about how, you know, he was basically a shut-in. You didn't really see Kobe in LA as much. If you wanted to find Kobe, you had to be at the Lakers practice facility or at one of his training facilities, the Mamba Academy. So very dedicated to the game. He held everybody to the fire. Just like he expected himself to be in the gym, putting in the work, putting in the time, being in a film session, educating himself, studying his opponents, finding a way to be the best version of himself every single night in and night out. He expected all of his teammates to do the same, and ultimately that's what led them back to championship aspirations in 2007, 2008 season, and then 08, 09, and then 2009, 2010 when they went to the finals 3 straight years. One of my favorite players of all time, obviously Dwayne Wade is up there, and Michael Jordan is up there in that conversation as the best shooting guards, 1, 2, and 3. But for me, Kobe just hit different. Not because he's passed away and now we got to say a bunch of nice things. No, for a lot of those years, I mean, I was a Phoenix Suns fan, and to watch him just rip my heart out repeatedly over the years, or being terrified that we had to play Kobe in the playoffs. I mean, there's been some ups and downs in my fandom for Kobe, but ultimately the greatest respect for him and his game and a lot of the things that he's accomplished in this league. Another person that's also held in high regards is Tim Duncan. 1,392 games in his career, 19 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 26,496 points in his career, 15,091 rebounds in his career, 4,225 assists, and 3,020 blocks in his entire career. 15-time NBA All-Star, 5-time NBA champ, 15-time All-NBA, 15-time All-Defense, 98 All-Rookie Team, 2000 All-Star Game MVP, 3-time Finals MVP, 2-time MVP, 98 Rookie of the Year, 2 times NCAA All-Region, 1997 AP Player of the Year, 2 times Consensus AA, Wooden and Naismith Award, Rupp Trophy, 2 times ACC Player of the Year, 3-time All-ACC and Tournament MVP, and he's also ACC All-Freshman Team and ACC MVP. What in the world? I When I was doing my homework for all of this, I didn't realize how dominant he was in college. Now, a lot of times, I'll give me specifically, I'll just give the nod right off the bat to Kareem for being the best college basketball player of all time. In that conversation, you see a lot of people give the nod to Christian Laettner. I really don't really acknowledge him as that. He had a great college career, but in terms of the upper echelon, I automatically gave it to Kareem. But I think we should start looking at all these accolades and giving Tim Duncan some of the respect he deserves. Another person, running into the Phoenix Suns back in the day, being a Phoenix fans, I was terrified. I thought they absolutely have no chance because these teams, the Spurs and the Lakers, they dominated the Western Conference for about a good 10 to 15 years straight, I think. So let's do the math. 1999, it was the Spurs. 2000, 01, and 2, it was the Lakers. 3, it was the Spurs. 4, it was the Lakers. 5, it was the Spurs. So that's what, 7 straight years. It was either San Antonio or the Lakers, and then 2007, it was the Spurs again. 08, 09, and 10, it was the Lakers. And then 11, it was Dallas. I'll say 11 and 6, it was Dallas. And then, I mean, really, for about 12 years, you didn't see many other teams having a chance of getting out of Western Conference. And like I said, being a Phoenix Suns fans, that sucked because we knew we were going to have to play Kobe or Tim Duncan to get out of that predicament. So, I mean, just absolutely dominant. I believe I said this before, widely regarded as the greatest power forward in the history of the game with respects to guys like, Kevin Garnett, who we'll talk about in a second, Charles Barkley, some of the other bigs like Karl Malone. A lot of respect to those guys. Nothing taken away from them, but Tim Duncan has been doing it on a high level for so long. His NBA Finals appearances, he's always been very dominant. No matter what was happening in the regular season, we knew Tim Duncan was going to have his numbers. But the more important thing for them was Popovich has always managed his minutes in the regular season. I don't really think he's played close to 38, 39 minutes, in several years. Speaking in terms of at the end of his career, I mean, I think that stopped way back in when Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili emerged as two other stars on that team. So really manages minutes and keeping him fresh for the finals. That was the best thing to do for his career. He ended up playing, you know, a very long career, far longer than most people anticipate for a big man, but that's still greatness from his freshman year of college all the way to his final year in the NBA is just absolutely not something you can't really compare that to any other big. So I think that's why you have him at the number one spot. Someone who is not, nowhere near being less talented or less gifted. A very high, high, high mode of energy every single time he stepped on the floor, especially in his Minnesota days. Look, everybody remembers Boston till now simply because we use them in an argument every single day when we sit down and talk about who started the super teams. But look, go back, watch film on Minnesota KG. That dude was a terror on both sides of the ball, and he was letting you know about it, so that was making you mad, but it really wasn't taking him out of his game. Back to the basket, that's over with. Over the right shoulder turn fadeaway. Cash money, can't reach it. He's 6'11", 7 feet tall. Mid-range game, jab step. Jab step. Up, jab again, hit the jumper. Same thing every single time. You couldn't do anything with it. He can get to the basket, dunk on you. Pick and roll defense, one of the best that I've seen in my several years of watching the NBA. Pick and roll defense, being able to talk, communicate, direct the players that are being picked off. Getting around the big man to show on these screener rolls, one of the best I've ever seen. And watching him in practice, I've always watched Garnett's practices. His level of communication, his level of motivation and energy that you see in the basketball game, you saw that in practice too. And he was holding everybody accountable night in and night out. And that's what ultimately made the Celtics great. You look at what was happening in Minnesota, the losing seasons. Look, I mean, he did get the MVP award in 2004. He had Latrell Sprewell, Sam Cassell, Michael Oliver Candy. He had a solid team around him. Troy Hudson, I believe he was still there. But they had a pretty solid team around them. But they weren't getting past the Lakers with Kobe, Shaq, Malone, Peyton, Devin George, Derek Fisher. He wasn't getting past them. How could you expect them to be able to do that? So, with respects, um, go back and watch that Minnesota KG. Very different. 1,462 games, 17 points, 10 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 26,071 points, 14,662 rebounds in his career, 5,445 assists, and 3,179 blocks for his entire career. 15-time All-Star, 4-time rebound champ, 2008 NBA MVP. No, 2008 NBA champion, and I believe he should have been the MVP. I don't know what's going on. I probably need to get a drink of water. But 2008, I feel like he should have been the Finals MVP. Granted, they gave it to Paul Pierce, which we later found out he didn't have a knee injury. He just had to go to the bathroom, so he faked it. I really don't know why you would ever share that information. I mean, you could have been more of a legend if you just stuck with the fake knee injury thing. But anyways, I think KG should have won that. They wouldn't have been there without him. They wouldn't have been able to compete for the championship if it wasn't for Garnett, offensively and defensively. He was ultimately the defensive player of the year that season. 9-time All NBA, 12-time All Defense, 96 All Rookie, 2003 All Star Game MVP, and 2004 MVP, as I mentioned before. But really, the Celtics don't get a ring without him. What he brought to the table, his tutelage of Perkins, his tutelage of Rondo, took Tony Allen under his wing. That ultimately is what got them to the championship. You know, we've seen Paul Pierce with another All-Star caliber player a couple times throughout his career, barely made it to the playoffs, and much less out of the first round. Didn't experience much success. Ray Allen, he had some success when he was in Milwaukee, able to get to the conference finals against Philly. Not so much in Seattle. He was putting up big numbers, a lot of scoring, a lot of shooting. That's where a majority of his three-pointers for his career came from, if I'm not mistaken. But once he got to the Boston Celtics, he was I guess you could say third. He was most definitely the third option. Not quite the spot-up shooter that we've seen in his last 2 years in Boston and later on in Miami, but still a good player. But ultimately, like I said, KG, offensively, defensively, if you needed a stop, Garnett. If you needed a bucket, throw it into KG. Ultimately, at the end of the game, you were going to have the ball in Paul Pierce's hands because, they were very adamant that, hey, this is your team. So you're going to put the ball in Pierce's hands, or if they were trying to double him off to catch, then you're going to use him as a decoy to get Ray Allen open. But KG, he just, hey, this is Paul's team. We're just going to follow his lead, and I'm going to do what I do best, which is wreak havoc on both sides of the ball. And he did just that, got them to the championship. In my opinion, up to that point, it was one or two superstars to a team. If you're the Pistons, you're going to see multiple players in the All-Star game because, the fan vote voted for players that deserved it the most. Coaches, they went with the players that deserved it the most. And the unit with Ben Wallace, Rasheed, Chauncey, and Rip, they all deserved it. And I don't think Tayshaun ever got the nod, but he deserved to be that as well. I mean, to think you had 5 non-superstars on one team that could possibly be in the All-Star game. I mean, not a lot of teams was doing that simply because all Detroit did was they scored by committee, played tenacious defense, but it was really, like I said, one or two superstars to a team. Boston broke that mold. You had KG, Ray get traded, Pierce was there, and then, as I mentioned before, under the tutelage of Kevin Garnett, Rondo emerged as a 4-star. So you have 4 guys in the All-Star game potentially. Boston in the last, starting in 2008, Boston started this era of the super team. I don't really count Charles Barkley going to the Rockets or Malone and Payton going to the Lakers simply because they were dirt old and they were just going along for the ride to try and get a ring. Um, but that era was started with KG and those boys. Like I said, Kim Mulkey, Barbara Stevens, Eddie Sutton, Rudy Tomjanovich, um, you know, Patrick Bowman. Everybody is well deserving of their All Star. I mean, everybody is well deserving of their Hall of Fame nods. But three guys that shaped the NBA for several years, for 20 plus years. I mean, Garnett, Duncan, and Kobe, some of the best we'll ever see. And I don't think we'll see a Hall of Fame class of this caliber again, with that including Tamika Catchings in that mix. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the show. Special thanks to Curtis Murphy and Murphy Lee Training for sponsoring this episode. If you want to stay up to date on merchandise or simply update your game, please click the link in the description to stay up to date on all things Murphy Lee Training. Till next time, you know the rules.